welcome to our last session. I'm ad-libbing because my notes are not for this session. So let's see how this goes. Welcome to the last session of LocalGov Drupal Week. Thanks so much for joining us in this session. Thanks for joining us throughout the week. So this session is from Paul and Simon from Big Blue Door and Olivia from Southwark Council. Thanks to all of you for running it. We also like to take this opportunity to thank our event sponsor, Home Connections, owned and led by local authorities and housing associations. Home Connections is a social purpose company supporting a fairer housing sector. I've said that so many times this week. I hope I'm still sort of doing
very well
for the sponsors. Thanks also to all our subscribing councils and suppliers, including Big Blue Door. Just a quick Zoom thing. Apologies for the problem with the link. Well done for getting here. If you click View in the top right hand of your screen, you'll be able to change the layout of the page, which might be useful for some people depending on what device you're on once Paul starts sharing. Please add any questions in the chat, and either Paul or Finn will pick those up as we go. And now I'll hand you over to Paul, I think, who's going to be running the session. Thanks very much, Paul.
Brilliant. Thank you, Tim. Right, let me just share my screen. So just in terms of today, Olivia from Southwark Council is going to give us a quick intro. Then I'm going to take us through essentially kind of what we've done on the project so far. Alice is going to take us through kind of what's coming next. And Simon is kindly going to manage the chat in terms of questions, and we'll try and take some of those at the end. Just a quick introduction from myself. I'm Paul. I'm one of the managing partners here at Big Blue Door. My background is in digital project delivery. I used to work in government, central government, for about 8 years, working at places like the Cabinet Office, Ofsted and Number 10, and now I head up delivery at Big Blue Door. Alice is one of our delivery directors, and she'll come on later on. But for now, let me pass over to Olivia for some background and context.
Hi all, and yeah, thank you for joining today. I know it's late on a Friday and probably everyone's looking forward to the weekend starting. I know that I definitely am. But yeah, I'm a web and digital program lead here at Southwark, and we're really excited to be working with Big Blue Door on our LocalGov Drupal site move. So yeah, Paul kind of asked me to do a bit of an intro as to why we're moving and also sort of the reasons for choosing LocalGov Drupal. So yeah, I'll go through that, and then I think Paul and the others will go through some more of the exciting stuff around what we've done so far. So yeah, I guess why we're moving. So we know that with our current website, we're not meeting user needs, and we've done a lot of research over the years, which has suggested that the website's difficult for people to navigate and find the information they need. We know that the content is a major issue. So content is really outdated, it's inaccurate. People don't trust the information that's on there, and often that means that there's quite a lot of avoidable contact which comes into the contact centre, which obviously causes frustration for the internal Southwark teams. We know internally at Southwark as well that we have quite a limited knowledge of content owners across the website, and that can make it quite hard to kind of keep the content up to date, and feeds into that whole issue with the content. In terms of our current CMS that we use, it's a proprietary or kind of bespoke CMS. It's pretty old, it hasn't been updated for a long time. There's quite a lot of accessibility issues. It doesn't have a lot of the functionality that you would kind of expect as standard in other CMSs. From like a back-end editor perspective, it's pretty clunky and unintuitive, and it is quite inflexible when it comes to sort of templates and functionality. We also don't really have a roadmap of improvements when it comes to new functionality, and we're locked into our current vendor given that it is kind of a proprietary software. So anyway, based on all of the above and all of that research, a year or so ago, we made a decision to actually look at replatforming. And as part of that journey, we did some research, we did some soft market testing to see what else was out there. LocalGov Drupal was one of the options, but we also did get demos from other suppliers and providers, and we also did quite a lot of research speaking to other councils and peers, those that were on the LocalGov Drupal platform, but also those that weren't. What we found was that most CMSs are pretty similar, to be honest, and do most of the same things. And I suppose that kind of leads us on to why LocalGov Drupal. And it stood out for a number of reasons. I suppose one of them is pretty obvious. So I guess it's around the fact that the CMS has been designed by councils for councils. A lot of the features and templates that are available have been tried and tested. They're under the scrutiny of a big network of councils, and therefore we're kind of really designing for what the needs of our audiences are. It also avoids that whole thing of reinventing the wheel, and it allows us to save time and money, which is obviously really important within the sector we're working in. There's also a huge opportunity for collaboration and to work with others across the network, and develop new features and give back to the community, which is something that we really want to try and do as part of sort of being involved in the project. That kind of leads me on to my other point, which is around the community. So prior to even deciding that we were going to sign up and move over to LocalGov Drupal, we joined the Slack channel. We'd been to some community meetups. I think there was an event, probably a few years ago now, in Azure, in AWS's headquarters, where we got to meet some of the team. And what we found was that there was a really kind of big community that were really engaged, people actively contributing to the project and to the product. We really liked the fact that people were kind of grappling with a lot of the issues that we have, and even if someone doesn't have an answer or a solution, at least you don't feel like you're on your own, and you can sort of join up with others to maybe find a solution to that problem, and we sort of sought solace in that. And then I guess the final point that I wanted to touch on was around the fact that there's an active and diverse supplier market, and I think that's been clear throughout some of the other sessions that have gone on this week. We didn't want to be locked into a specific vendor, and we found that suppliers, as part of this sort of project, genuinely do collaborate, which doesn't tend to happen in other areas and industries. And I know that I think Paul's probably going to talk about it in more detail lately, but we're working with Big Blue Door on the actual sort of build of the CMS, but we're also working with InViews on the content, and these are two suppliers that are obviously part of the Drupal community. They've worked together in the past, and that working together on this project seems to be working really well. And I know that it might be in the future we decide to maybe work with other providers, but there's also other councils out there that have followed a similar model and are working with a range of suppliers across multiple projects. And yeah, that was something that was quite exciting for us. So I think those were the main points I wanted to touch on. I guess I'll hand back to Paul, but yeah, we're really excited for what's to come, and to be honest, we just can't wait to launch the new site.
Brilliant. Thanks, Olivia. So yeah, I'll dive into a little bit about the delivery approach that we've been working through, basically a summary of kind of how we've been working, what we've done up until now, and then what's kind of coming up. Just in terms of kind of the operation model, as Olivia's already alluded to, it's very much a partnership approach across both multiple external organisations, the council itself, obviously, Big Blue Door, InViews, but also within Southwark, multiple disciplines, multiple services. We've been liaising with the brand team, with comms, with IT, with all of the service owners. So yeah, very kind of collaborative. We, from our perspective, have had a relatively standard delivery team. Definitely different people kind of working on this at different times, both kind of, account directors, delivery directors, and a kind of full design team. I think a couple of the team are on the call today. We've had our lead product designer on the project. We've had a UX designer as well. We've also had developers already involved. Actually, one of the things we've done is we spun up a LGD site very early on to help work with colleagues at InViews in terms of, as soon as content's been ready, it's been added into an unthemed distribution, just so we can start to essentially see how content will look and look at kind of design components as well. We've delivered the whole project so far, and just to give a sense of scale, we've been working on this for about 4 months. I think we started back in August from our perspective. InViews had been working on this for a few months already, and I think one of the lessons learned from our perspective is definitely, you know, start early with your content. To give a sense of scale, I think Southwark have over 3,000 pages on their existing site. That's pretty meaty. There's lots of content there to review. You know, is it still needed? Can it be refined? Can it be reduced down? That's not a 5-minute job, kind of obviously. In fact, it's kind of a number of months amount of work. We have been working in a kind of fairly classic fortnightly sprint pattern process. We've been doing the standard sort of agile ceremonies. We've been essentially doing kind of sprint planning, daily stand-ups, retrospectives and demos as well. We're very keen on kind of having this sort of blended model across suppliers as well. We think it works really well. We definitely don't want to pretend that we kind of know everything. We very much want to draw on expertise from across the sector. Most of our discovery thinking is kind of grounded in this design thinking model, kind of made famous by Google and IDEO. It's this idea of kind of trying to understand your audience, trying to kind of empathize with it, with those users initially, trying to define what their requirements are, and then essentially trying to come up with ideas very rapidly, prototype them, test them, implement them, and get feedback. Very much that kind of classic feedback loop. Okay, so what have we been up to so far? These are kind of the main areas that we've worked on as part of discovery, and we've got basically just kind of slide on each of these. We've tried to keep this kind of nice and visual just to give a high level view of what we've been up to. As you'd expect, there's been a dive into analytics, essentially looking at stats across the existing site, which did actually have a bit of a design update a few months ago. So we've been able to kind of analyze some of that data. We've conducted a number of stakeholder engagement sessions. We've done user interviews, competitor benchmarking. We've developed some personas. The council already had some personas, but we've kind of built on those. A massive piece on information architecture, particularly given the kind of scale of the project. Card sorting, wireframing, user testing, and then into visual design, which is essentially kind of where we're up to now. Firstly, though, content audit collaboration. This is essentially the phase that colleagues at InViews are kind of leading on. They've basically been kind of reworking content across the site. We've been working closely with them, basically making sure that they can put content into an LGD system from day one, so we can kind of start to test that content out, those kind of big kind of tasks and kind of calls to action. So that's been very much a benchmark of the project so far. In terms of kind of reviewing analytics, we've dived into data from the past kind of few months. We've also looked at how data has changed as part of the recent design update that the site has had, essentially looking at what is working well so far, what are the bottlenecks, what are the big important service areas, and how does that change over time throughout the year as well. So any of those kind of lessons that we can learn in terms of how we order our services on the sites have been really important, particularly analysing mobile traffic. Well over half of the users across the site are coming through mobile and tablet as well. So that's a really important audience for us to focus in on. The stakeholder meetings that I mentioned, we've held 3 kind of initial stakeholder sessions. We've used FigJam to basically have kind of collaborative working with those groups. As a kind of way of working in general, all of the processes that we're using are out in the open, so that essentially people can kind of dive into these sessions both on the day but also afterwards as well. So if people can't make kind of stakeholder sessions or feedback sessions, they can still add their comments at a later date. Really important for us that we don't want to be tied down by people's availability, because we know people are incredibly busy. particularly as you get more kind of senior stakeholders and councillors. We've also completed a number of user interviews, essentially with end users within Southwark. We provided incentives to those users to kind of get involved in the project, and then they've essentially provided feedback on both the existing platform, and then they've also kind of come back to help test the wireframes that we've generated as well. All of these sessions completely recorded and analysed as well. User persona development as well. I think we came up with 11 personas as part of this project, each one kind of quite detailed in terms of who these users are and what their kind of key user journeys will be across the site. And yeah, mapping the current IA. I think it's fair to say that 3 or 4 different organizations have had a crack at this. It is an absolute beast, and we have also inputted into it as well. I've got a few kind of screens up that I'll show you later just to kind of give you a sense of that. Lots of benchmarking, as you'd expect. We've looked at all of the kind of big sites, obviously gov.uk as probably the ultimate benchmark in terms of how things operate, but also some other sites, things like westminster.gov.uk, which we think is a particular kind of exemplar. We've looked at Essex Council. We may well have people on the call today from Essex. It always feels to me as if it's one of the leading sites for LGD, and one that we've definitely drawn on closely. We've also looked at Worcestershire County Council. Slightly selfishly, it's a project that we at Big Blue Door actually delivered, but it is actually a classic Drupal site rather than an LGD site. So some differences that we wanted to try and draw on, and particularly looking at how their kind of live chat works, which is slightly different to some of the other sites that we explored. And yeah, lots of iterations in terms of information architecture and user journeys, basically diving down into the different areas of the site and calls to action that people want to explore. Card sorting sessions, you can kind of get a sense of this here. We basically had attendees from different service areas across the business, people who led on events, the libraries and heritage team, the education and schools team, and also people from the contact center as well. Again, trying to help us find out what are the most important things that people are coming to the site for and where should they be positioned on the site. And yeah, you can kind of get a sense here, the sort of before and after in terms of trying to reduce down the number of services for the information architecture. And yeah, we eventually kind of went into wireframes. We ended up creating wireframes that explored 11 user journeys. So essentially 1 user journey for each persona. That was done within Figma as a full clickable prototype. I can kind of show you that in a second. And that was fully tested. We basically kind of tested that with real users. We had a range of questions that we did. We managed to kind of then essentially get that data and then iterate on the wireframes so that we're essentially kind of doing a second version based on information that we heard from real users. Okay, just going to pause there and show you some of these kind of outputs in a little bit more detail. So yeah, kind of full reports from things like stakeholder engagement sessions. We had kind of, full proposal for user interviews as well. And then things like the kind of user interviews, these are the sort of outputs that we had. As you can kind of see that they're all in Figma, they're all kind of interactive. People can kind of jump in and kind of see what all of these outputs were across the team in their own time. Very kind of collaborative, which has been really important part of this project. Yeah, these are kind of a sense of the personas. What are people's kind of needs, their wants, their user journeys? What are their kind of bios? What are their personalities? Yeah, again, really kind of nice way of breaking down who are the main groups of users that come to the site and indeed why. The IA, as I mentioned, very extensive. This is a particularly big kind of Figma file, but you can kind of get a sense each of the service areas kind of broken down. And we basically have worked with the individual service areas to kind of move things around. This is by no means finalized. It builds on a lot of work that's come before, but it's kind of one of the kind of live documents that we're working with at the moment. And yeah, output here from the card sorting workshops as well, just in terms of the types of information that people would expect to see within each section. And yeah, this is this is actually the wireframes that we produced, again, using Figma for this. So essentially a kind of fully clickable prototype. So we could basically have people testing kind of proper services. You can kind of see here, you can dive down into council tax. You can see what is the kind of council tax section, bans and charges. You can see we're starting to just think a little bit here about design and the kind of components that we might have, that we might kind of use within the actual Drupal build as well. And then essentially we've gone into visual design. These are, it's fair to say, these are kind of brand and design concepts rather than full prototypes at this point. We've delivered 3 design routes. Option 1, which is a kind of a lighter mode, you kind of got a little screen grab of it here. We've done this on desktop and mobile. It's similar for option 2, more of a kind of dark mode. And then kind of option 3 is a completely kind of different look and feel. And if I go up here a little bit, I'll show you a couple of these just in kind of more conceptual mode. So yeah, again, all done in Figma, so we can kind of get easy feedback from users and stakeholders. You can kind of get a sense that we've tried to play around with the different services, and a bit like the wireframes, we've tried to do the same user journey so that we can kind of compare data and see, you know, are things working as we'd expect them to be, as you kind of drill down deeply into the site. So it's essentially the same for each of the concepts. This is route 1, but obviously mobile, playing around with, you know, how might the menu, the services menu work on mobile, and essentially kind of, yeah, looking at how the cards kind of might stack. Are we showing too much information here? Are people going to be able to kind of access these links properly? So all of these factors are the type of things that we're trying to test through these routes. Again, it's kind of pretty similar for design route 2, kind of playing around with search here, you know, having kind of popular search terms on mobile, kind of nicely accessible as well. I think that works really well. And just kind of looking at how the kind of dark design mode might work. Again, we had the kind of full kind of design for the dark mode for route 2, just to allow a bit of a comparison. And again, you can kind of dive down into the same sorts of journeys just so we can kind of compare data. And then finally, route 3, a little bit different, this one. That's kind of why we did this one. We just thought it's a kind of slightly brighter route. Yeah, and again, kind of desktop and mobile versions there. And we did a little bit of kind of AI heat map generation to look at the designs to see essentially, will people select the right type of calls to action? You can kind of see here the attention score in the bottom left. That was for kind of route 1. Route 2 scoring more highly, scoring 69 out of 100. Route 3 highest. And then essentially though, we've kind of gathered feedback on the design concepts across the council. We ran an online survey, which was circulated internally, giving us both quantitative and qualitative data. Essentially, we were able to kind of analyze the results and the kind of comments. And ultimately, options 1 and 2 are being taken forward to senior management for review. That essentially takes us to where we are at this point in terms of what's coming next. Let me pass on to Alice.
Thanks, Paul. So yeah, as Paul says, we're at the point now where we've got 2 design concepts, which are going through to both SMT and leaders, councillors at Southwark Council. And essentially, I'm going to take you through the kind of next steps once that process has been signed off. So we're looking to have one design route that we're going to be taking forward. And from there, we'll be building out a fully clickable full prototype. We'll be working with the team to kind of decide on the different journeys that we build out into that prototype. We'll be doing user testing throughout. I'll kind of touch on that. And then the ultimate kind of goal before we move into build is to have a fully component-based and responsive design system, which essentially allows us to hand over into our development team for the kind of technical part of the project. In terms of prototyping then, so at the moment we have very base design concepts as Paul took you through, and we'll basically be working with Southwark and actually in Views to kind of work out the specific user journeys that we really want to test first in the prototype. This will kind of be slightly informed by Views' content audit process as well, working really closely with them to work out kind of what they're working on, what's signed off. We essentially want to have a prototype that's as close to the live signed off content as we can to give us kind of the best impact in terms of user testing. We're using Figma for our prototypes. It's actually really powerful now. We're able to kind of design hover states, conditional logic, different states of different elements. Really helps kind of get the real look and feel as close as we can to a built prototype or product at this early stage of development. Previously, it was kind of very much static images. Hopefully you'll see from what Paul's kind of taken you through, we at least now have slightly better kind of use of Figma's full features. The screenshot on the slide, actually, just back on the other one. Thanks, Paul. Yeah, that's actually from a project we did with the Southwark Youth Hub a couple of years ago. And that kind of just shows the beginning of the depth of the prototyping that we'll do. So various templates, various service levels, various different areas of the site to try and test as many kind of core user journeys as we can. Fab, thanks. In terms of user testing then, so definitely kind of a core part of our project going forwards. We are about to, once we go into the prototype, once we have a clickable prototype, we'll be arranging various rounds of user testing. Each round of user testing will include the test itself and then a design sprint to basically implement the changes that we've got from the different rounds of user testing. Definitely one thing that we're working really closely with the Southwark Council team on is trying to source users. They're working really hard to find people throughout the process. Definitely one that's really tricky. We know that. So for other councils going into similar projects, try and get those nice and early. You want as many kind of users as you can. We're doing various rounds of testing, wireframes, prototype, and then also into build. So definitely want to kind of get started on early because I know it's a really tricky one, both availability and just the kind of right people at the right time. We expect to do a combination of moderated and unmoderated testing, so both in person and remote. That kind of completely depends on availability and the kind of the timelines that we're able to work towards, but both are kind of possible with the programs that Paul mentioned and everyone's kind of remote working. It's really possible to do these kinds of things remote now. People are really used to it, and you can get really successful results either in person or remotely as well. And that kind of little diagram kind of shows you hopefully the kind of loop that we would expect to kind of play throughout this process now. So report, implement, test, report, implement, test, kind of throughout, always making sure that we're kind of validating what we've changed over time. In terms of the output then, so after several rounds of user testing, once the designs are signed off, we basically, to allow us to move into development, we will work with our design team to build a fully component-based design system. This is basically a catalogue of all of the different components and templates that we'll be going in to build on. This will be very much a combination of theming the out-of-the-box LocalGov Drupal paragraphs. So there's lots of really good stuff in there that comes out of the box, but then also the custom build components to basically build the Southwark specific content so that can be built successfully. So really kind of big combination of LocalGov Drupal and and custom functionality. This essentially was the way that we kind of hand over into our development team. It's also something that the Southwark team can use going forwards to help with kind of wider digital products. So it might be their retheming modern gov, it might be their account portal, any of their kind of digital estate to make sure it kind of comes in line with the new LocalGov Drupal website as well. So into the technical build in terms of kind of what we're going to do and how we're going to approach it. So as mentioned, the content audit and migration is underway. It's expected that the reviewed page content is actually going to be added directly into LocalGov Drupal and shared with service owners there. This will both kind of save valuable time. So it means that the content's only kind of been written in one place once rather than written somewhere and then migrated into LocalGov Drupal. It also means that when service owners come to actually sign off their content, they're seeing it in a kind of clickable format. They can see it with a bit more content design rather than just a Word doc or a Google doc, but also gives them a sense of how it works within the site. So really kind of pushing that that kind of early content migration into Drupal so that service owners get a real sense of kind of how their content's going to work. In terms of the actual build, it's going to be LocalGov Drupal, as you'd expect, using the brand new Drupal 10 distribution. We went straight to Drupal 10 when we did the base install. We didn't kind of start with Drupal 9 and go into Drupal 10. So yeah, really nice to see that working from an installation perspective off the back. It's actually already up and running. Whilst we're nowhere near kind of the main development phase, obviously we're not even designed. It's already up and running so that the views and the content team can start adding content, but very much the kind of base install of LocalGov Drupal at the moment. No other development has started yet. However, we're working with the council to work out some kind of core back-end functionalities that can start in the background whilst the design work is still underway. We've got lots of kind of nice improvements that we're going to make to the content editing experience, for example, so that rather than kind of delaying that until the design is done and we've started theming, all of these kind of things can happen in the background. We've had to be pretty flexible with kind of changing timelines and things with this project, as you'd expect. Yeah, we've kind of brought forward some elements of the back end development just to try and kind of get the team started more quickly. The build will be a really nice combination of LocalGov Drupal out the box functionality, as I mentioned. So that's your main your services, your events, your news, but then custom functionality as well to deliver kind of more complex requirements. So this might include integrations with the GIS map system for things like in my area. We're doing custom listings for different sections of the service areas. We're doing completely kind of different bespoke areas that may also look and feel slightly different. One example, we're working with the registrars team at the moment to explore a microsite, but within the LocalGov Drupal site that will have completely kind of bespoke functionality. It needs kind of its own custom components. It needs to be able to deliver different things, and also will have a different brand. So working really kind of closely with all the different service areas to understand what can be done out the box with LocalGov Drupal, but then also what can we build on. And that's a really nice thing about this as an installation. It comes with loads of really good stuff out the box that you can deliver a lot of your content requirements for, but we can also build on it as well. As Paul touched on, we work within kind of agile methodologies. So we have a weekly call with both InViews and the Southwark Council team, but we're working in kind of 2-week development sprint cycle. They'll be part of this entirely. We kind of completely open collaborative approach, all of our programs, all of our software, that kind of thing, kind of helps us work as one team throughout, which is, I think, is a really, really important one. As we're in the design phase, we will be doing several rounds of user testing on the built prototype as well. So between each round, we'll be doing a design and development sprint that allows us to build the product, test the product, iterate the product based on the findings that we have. Again, just to reiterate, the Southwark team are already trying to source kind of users for those later rounds of testing as well. Definitely one that takes a little while, and we want to make sure that we've got a really good group of users for kind of every phase of the project. On to the next slide. Thanks, Paul. So as well as user testing, yeah, it goes without saying that kind of accessibility runs throughout this project right from the very beginning, checking against the latest AA 2.2 regulations. So that's right from kind of design phase all the way through. So our designs are tested via a Figma plugin. That's things like color contrast, font and background colors, element sizes, that kind of thing. And then also we will be, or the Southwark Council team will be sourcing users with different access requirements as well. So we'll be making sure that we test the built products with different users as well. And then in terms of code, it will be tested against kind of automated deployment scripts as standard, and then tests with things like Axe, Lighthouse Wave, and possibly even an external accessibility audit nearer the time before launch as well. Couple of examples there. Solihull Metropolitan Borough Council is probably a really good one, scoring 97% on their site improve when that went live. We work with National Museums Liverpool, so slightly different industry, but really nice to see that them win an award for coming second on the site Morse. So yes, a few examples of kind of showing, I guess, the commitment to that being a focus for the project throughout. And then launch, as Olivia says, exciting. Feels a little way off at this stage, but definitely looking ahead to launch. We have discussed various phases for this. I think we know that some of the kind of wider integrations, so things like My Account probably won't go in the first launch, but they might be discussed for a phase 2. We've also yet to decide on a launch plan, but it's likely to be a kind of combination of private beta, public beta before it actually goes live. This is something that's worked really, really well with other projects that we've run for other councils. So yeah, definitely kind of up for discussion at this point, and a little way off, but yes, we're as excited for this one to go live as Olivia says. Paul, back to you.
Cool. Yeah, just very briefly, kind of aware of time. Essentially, just to say, we do have a kind of full post-launch support and kind of business as usual plan with the council. We've got kind of full support desk facilities as you'd expect, kind of standard sort of service level agreements. Essentially, we're expecting to kind of host the site, complete all of the kind of security updates, have things like 99.95 uptime guarantee and so on. So that will kind of help transition us into business as usual. From our experience, there are bound to still be some development items after the initial launch, and we'll kind of continue to deliver those on a fairly regular basis as well. But yeah, as Alice says, that does feel a little way off still, hopefully not too far, and we're kind of looking forward to getting into it in more detail in the new year. I think that's it. Happy to take any questions or anything else, really. Simon, any questions that we've had through? So I haven't been looking at the chat.
I'm on mute, I know. Mark Conroy asked, it would be interesting if you could consider contributing the basis knowledge of the design system back to the community. I think a lot of councils would benefit from that. I see you nodding your head, which is good.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
So we can give that one a tick. Brilliant.
Yeah, that's a really nice idea. Tim and Agatha, who are kind of will be leading on this bit from our side, I'm sure they'd be really keen to do that. So yeah, I don't see any reason not to do that. Yeah, I mean, in essence, all of these kind of ways of working should be in the open by default anyway. So yeah, the more we can contribute back, the better.
Yeah. Finn asks, will you be building on the top of the LocalGov base theme or starting a completely fresh theme?
Good question. I think we've done a mix of both actually in the past, and I think ultimately it'll probably depend on the design route that we go down. I'll definitely defer to our front end devs for that, but I'll find out and we can report back. Yeah,
and Ryan from Hammersmith and Fulham says that we can use, or we should be able to use their subsites module that they built, which I would agree with. I'll tell you more about it offline. Fantastic. And Finn asks, are there any areas of code or modules, etc., where work can be contributed back to LocalGov Drupal? And I know the answer is yes. Yeah, there will be. Clearly, development is actually not kind of underway on this one yet, but certainly with Olivia's agreement, anything that we produce, we should be pushing back for sure. Jeremy from Trafford, as all councils have the same issues, maybe there could be an option to shortcut most of the analysis and just offer a ready prepared solution. Yeah, I think it's an interesting one. Like the discovery phase
can definitely be condensed. I mean, we did a project earlier this year for South Staffordshire where we did the entire project in 3 months. It meant essentially a massively condensed version of what you've seen today with, you know, smaller numbers of users and so on. But it's definitely doable. I think it just depends on ultimately a council's kind of appetite for that.
And what you miss out, I guess, on that route is your own kind of content audit, that kind of thing, which whilst you can lend from experience from other projects, that is very individual to the individual councils. Same with your kind of bespoke functionality. That is to say, things like persona generation, definitely those kinds of things will be relatively similar from council to council. There'll be differences, there'll be additional personas, there'll be things that aren't relevant, but quite a lot of the kind of discovery and content audit in particular is quite specific to a council.
Any more questions? If you'd like a copy of our presentation, what's the best way to get in touch? Tim or Aaron?
Or Finn.
Or Finn, sorry, Finn.
You've got me for wrap up today. Everybody else is Aaron's gardening, Tim's going to pick up his kids, and Will is otherwise engaged. So there is an email that will go out to everyone who's signed up to the Luma event. I think. I'm not sure whether we have to do that or whether you can do that, but we'll figure that out.
I think it's
anyway.
automatic.
So we can circulate things to everybody, all the attendees, or post it on Slack, or whatever.
Yeah, we're more than happy for everyone to have a copy of our presentation.
That'd be great. That'd be great. Yeah, absolutely. I think all of the sessions this week have been recorded and will in due course be edited down a little bit and popped onto YouTube so that people can catch up. So I guess at that point we can put links to presentations alongside the recordings as well. Are there any more questions? If not, shall we wrap up? Are there any final comments from yourselves?
No, thanks for having us.
Absolutely, thanks for having us.
Thank you so much.
We've got a new message.
Oh, everybody got a present? It's a
Really enjoyed the session.
Really enjoyed the
Thanks,
session.
Brian.
Looking forward to seeing the final product. Well, this is the end of LocalGov Drupal week number 1. So yeah, thank you very much for everyone for the presentation from Big Blue Door, Paul and Simon, and from Southwark, Olivia and Alice. Have I missed anyone?
All good.
Thank you. That was really, really interesting and great to see the progress. And yeah, look forward to hearing about the next steps and future progress. And yeah, good luck going on. So yeah, thank you. I've got a few things to say. We hope you found it useful. There will be a feedback thing that gets automatically mailed out from the thing. So please do give us feedback on the sessions and all of the sessions this week. I've certainly enjoyed lots of them, all of them, I think. Although I missed one, I was late for it today. It wasn't in my calendar. So let us know about Luma as well, because Luma has been a little bit, some people find it very easy, some people don't. So let us know how that goes for you. We also have a meetup social scheduled in London for the Friday the 1st of December. I think we're going to meet around 4 to 8, that kind of thing. Originally, we're planning to meet in Borough Market near London Bridge, but the pub where we met last time apparently doesn't have space for us, so we might meet somewhere else. But it's going to be around there. So sign up on Luma. It's on the loop.mar/LocalGov Drupal. Thank you again to our sponsor, Home Connections, who have supported us this week, and to all of our subscribing suppliers, including Big Blue Door and councils, including Southwark. I don't know actually. But
Getting there.
Meeting in Southwark for the Christmas event.
Fantastic. Yeah, we should do that. Yeah, thank you for everyone, and to Netcall, who have been a massive supporter financially this year as well. And thank you for everyone who's joined the sessions this week, who's joined and who's taken part and given and asked questions, because it's it's great. It's gone much better than much more stuff that I thought was going to happen. So this is it's been fantastic, and it's really brought lots more energy to the community and to LocalGov Drupal. It sounds like there's a lot of positive things going on out there, and it's great to share them and hear them. So yeah, thank you all again. Thank you for doing the last slot on a Friday, where I'm sure you would usually be at the pub, no? But now you can close your computers and go and have your drink of choice. Yeah, have a really good weekend. Thank you all, and yeah, see you at the next thing. Take care for now.
Cheers, everyone. Bye-bye.